First question that you need to answer, which is, do you want your people to achieve excellence, or do you want them to avoid making mistakes? And it's easy to say, oh, we're achieving excellence company. You can only grow by achieving excellence. But then when you go down and talk to your middle managers and you find out what really motivates them on a day-to-day basis, you might be surprised. And oh, by the way, all these systems like Lean, TQL, Six Sigma, what are those for? Those are for reducing errors, reducing variation. That's good for statistics. It's not good for human beings. So we needed to refocus our human effort on achieving excellence. Sure, you're going to make mistakes, but you can still achieve greatness. You can still achieve something really amazing. Number two, do you want to be good or get better? So I took over the ship. Congratulations, you're now in charge. I had 2 weeks to get ready for an inspection. I asked my sailors, how's this inspection going to go? We're going to go to sea, we're going to shoot some torpedoes, exercise torpedoes, and they told me it was going to be a disaster because we hadn't done the training that normally you would do. Why? Because the ship had been spending all their time trying to do these repairs, so they didn't have time for training, blah, 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 blah. And so I said, okay, look, don't try and convince the inspectors we're any good. Just learn and try and get better. So instead of, when the inspector comes and looks at the records and says, well, gee, look, you guys haven't done training in 3 months. Instead of the sailor saying, well, yeah, look, here's all my excuses, the sailor would say, oh, that's terrible. And the inspector would say, well, it's not really that bad. We'd flip them. A year later, same crew, I'll fast forward, we got the highest inspection score that the Navy had records for operating our submarine. And even then, my guys didn't care about protecting their reputation. They just wanted to get better. What are the behaviors of people in an organization that want to protect their reputation? They're defensive. They manage, they spin things. They manage reputation. It's all wasted energy. It's all backwards. It's all focused on the history. It's all focused on the past. It's not getting you any better. So it's just a waste of time and energy. So don't do that. Well, it's a choice you can make. All right, here we are back in the sonar room. So the very first thing that I did, because I had this notion that I needed to get my guys engaged. I needed to get them to start, quote, owning the problem, have an engaged workforce. And here's the way it worked. See the sailor up in the front? When this guy wanted to go on holiday, he had to send in put a piece of paper in, which had to be signed by 6 people. His division chief, his department chief, the chief of the boat, the division officer, the department head, and the second in command of the submarine. 6 people. That's what Navy regulations said. Now, the United States Navy, in their infinite wisdom, gave me a form that only had 5 slots on it. So we'd have to make a line through it to add six spots. Well, what's happening here? We're taking information and we're pushing it up to the authority, right? That frontline supervisor has all the information he needs to say whether that sailor should go on leave. Has he been working hard? Do we have a replacement if he goes off, someone else to stand watch for him? Does he have trouble with his girlfriend? Is his mom sick? What's the ship doing that week? He knows all that, but he doesn't have the authority. So we have all these systems, and sometimes they're paper like we used. The paper goes slow, so we buy computers so we can automate it. And then we buy faster computers, then we buy cell phones. And the whole system is to push information up to authority. And we have a big investment in this. Well, we decided not to do that. What we decided was we were going to push authority down to where the information lives. So we're just going to say, you know what? All those people don't need to sign the piece of paper. Just this guy, his boss, the senior chief right behind him, and the chief of the boat. So in other words, I call that, we pushed the authority to where the information was native. Instead of asking, how do we aggregate information through some stoplight charts so that the boss can make a decision, we ask the question, how do we disaggregate decisions in a responsible way and push it down to the front lines where the troops can make the decisions. And when you do that, you get resiliency and you get speed of execution that's much faster than any other organization. On another submarine, when there was a problem in the engine room, they would call the captain and say, hey, we had a problem with number 2 main lube oil pump. And then then the captain would call a meeting, and then we'd go back, and then we'd get an order to shut down, shift to number 1 main lube oil pump and replace the bearing for number 2 main lube oil pump. And on my submarine, I'd get a phone call and say, hey, we had a problem with number 2 main lube oil pump. It's fixed. Boom. So if that's what your competitors are doing, you're not going to win. No matter how fast you push information to authority, it's not going to happen. But this is a decision you have to make. Are you going to push authority to information or information to authority? And here's one more thing. I see organizations confuse this all the time. They have hierarchies. I'm not afraid of hierarchy, smart hierarchy. I think defined hierarchies actually help. But we apply the rules for orders and direction to information. So in other words, when the sailor, if I walk down to the engine room and the sailor tells me, hey, I think there's a problem with this pump. It's starting to sound a little bit funny. That's information, that's okay. I walk out of the engine room, I go forward, I meet the engineer, and I said, hey, Petty Officer Jones just told me that number 2 main lube oil pump starting to sound a little funny. That's fine. Everyone in the organization should be comfortable with that. Everyone in the organization should be comfortable with the CEO walking down to the front line, standing behind the coders and saying, hey, how's it going? That's fine. But if you're going to give orders and directions, they should follow the chain of command. I shouldn't then tell the sailor what to do. I should let the engineer handle that. So don't make that mistake.